and you want to transition into product managing. You feel that you don't have product experience. Always true. Maybe you have worked with product managers, maybe you have interacted with customers, maybe you have participated in sprint planning, or maybe you've suggested some improvements in the process, that's product experience. The issue here is we haven't just labeled it that way. I can take one more example of a product designer. If you are a UI designer, don't only talk about screen. Talk about why you designed those screens. Talk about user interviews. You can talk about usability testing. You can talk about improving conversions. And that is how you become a product designer. So basically what I mean to say here is that you need to position yourself correctly and give some skills which are based in your target job roles. Agenda 3, writing resumes that tell stories. I let you know very small recruiter secret. Recruiters actually don't remember resumes. They remember stories. Imagine reading these two bullets. Candidate 1 worked with cross-functional teams. And a candidate 2 says worked with engineering, sales, and customer support members to launch a feature that reduced customer complaints by 40%. Whom do you think that the recruiter would remember? Candidate A, candidate 1, or candidate B, candidate 2? You can let me know. You can let me know. The candidate 2. Yeah, Varun. Right. Andrella, you're absolutely correct. Exactly. So most of you are correct here. We'll talk about it in detail in the coming slides. Agenda item 4 says transferable skills. This is probably the biggest myth I will break today. Most people think that changing careers means you are starting from zero, but that's not actually the case. If you have spent years in solving customer problems, if you have spent some time managing stakeholders, if you have analyzed data, if you have skills that travel with you, basically, job titles don't, right? You are a position fit for the transferable job. Agenda 5 is resume mistakes. So this slide which I have created is basically out of my experience as to I see resumes through and through. And I see some common mistakes which people make and they're completely fixable and we'll learn how. Agenda 6, cover letters. I know some of you might be thinking, do recruiters even read cover letters anymore? Is this in the trend right now? I agree, sometimes they don't. When you are changing your careers, a cover letter helps answer the biggest question. And the question is, why are you changing? And the answer to this question is incredibly valuable to your positioning for your next role. So yes, the answer here is cover letter is an incumbent document when you're changing your careers. Agenda 7 is LinkedIn. So we will talk about how LinkedIn can be a social atmosphere, social platform where you can be genuinely open to connect with recruiters and how does that help in transition too, per se. Now that we know what we're going to cover, let's put ourselves in the recruiter's seat for some time and understand our next slide. Why career transition resumes are different. So before we move further, I'm going to ask you a simple question. And I want everyone to answer very honestly and transparently in the chat. How many of you think that the biggest challenge when you're transitioning to a separate role, a unique, different role that what you've done is based out of your job designations? How many of you feel that? Okay, Andrella. I can see some less yeses. So I believe that you are confident about where you're positioning yourself. That's great. But by the end of the slide, I want to challenge that belief and show you that transferable skills are actually a boon to you and it's not a bane when it comes to changing of careers. So when a recruiter sees your resume, they have certain questions in their mind. Okay. And there are four major questions that immediately comes to their mind. Question one, why are you changing careers? This question is quite natural when they see your resume. This does not mean that recruiters do not like your career transition. They do not like your resume. So basically, what I mean to say here is that the problem is when your resume doesn't explain why you are making the move. And by when I say that, you do not explain that why you're making the move, it doesn't mean you have to write stories as to why you're taking a leap here. Basically, you can do it through your content very professionally too. I will show you some real life examples too to make you understand this better. So I'll give you a very small example. Let's say a software engineer is moving to a position of a product manager. A software engineer has 6 years of experience. He's technically excellent. He has good projects, very good eminent companies he has worked with, great skills. But obviously, there is no mention of product management in his resume. And imagine you are the recruiter. The first question that will come to your mind is, why would this person be interested in product management? They would also think, is the person really interested in product management, or they have just applied because the salary was higher? So basically, the problem here is the recruiter isn't questioning their ability because they've not been able to see that and gauge that through your resume as of now. They are questioning his motivation. So your resume should basically quietly answer the question by saying, maybe a software engineer can say, very easily say in the resume that I did collaborate with the product development team and assisted them in the entire product life cycle. Maybe you can tell them that you enjoyed requirement gathering as a part of the project life cycle. Maybe you can tell them that you've been involved in a lot of feature discussions, product NPD discussions, new product development discussions. Okay, before moving further, I want to just ask you, out of curiosity, what made you decide to transition? You can just give one word answers. Was it the growth part? What is ownership? Maybe the interest area was changed, innovation, leadership. What did exactly made you to decide to transition? One word answers would also do. Randir, interest. Okay. I can see 100, like you were really very transparent. Okay. Most of you have written growth, interest as your major reason. And that is exactly the motivation recruiters are trying to understand. So what I basically mean to say here is that you needn't be showing something fabricated, or you needn't fear about losing interest of the recruiters in the very first place. We should actually very cleverly induce that in the resume as to how you can transition. We'll see examples to understand this more. Question do, can you do the job? This is where many people panic. They think that I don't have the relevant job title, I don't have that designation, I don't have the experience. If the recruiters would see our resume, they would feel that, how come a business owner can become a software engineer? But that is not the case. Let me tell you very, very frankly. Recruiters don't hire titles or designations, they hire capabilities. They hire people who make them feel what that you have extremely contributed to the organization in a appropriate manner. So very recently, I coached someone from customer success. She kept saying, I don't have product experience. How will I position myself? Though I'm really interested in it, it is trending in the market. So I really want to explore product manager roles, but I don't have experience because I'm into the customer facing role. She was very confused. She was very dejected. She was outplaced by a very eminent organization, and so on and so forth. I just asked her a simple question. What do you do every day? Give me your everyday, day-to-day responsibilities that you do in the organization. And she said very plainly, I talk to customers, I understand their pain points, maybe I prioritize their issues, I work with engineering teams sometimes. I suggest product improvements if it comes to my mind very plainly. And I got her there. I said, you've just described half of a product manager's role then. She just didn't recognize that she had it in her, but she has already done some roles which relates to a product manager. So that is the difference between experience and positioning yourself for that experience. For example, if you are moving into product designing, we cannot simply write designed mobile screen apps. We can rephrase these things and write conducted user interviews, created wireframes based on usability insights, and then iterated designs using customer feedback. So I can give you examples on and on, but I really do not want to stretch this because I want to take some real life cases where you want me to let you know how you can transition. So we'll do that later. But the question 3 that comes into the minds of the recruiter is your previous experience relevant? Here, the common mistakes that I have seen with the career transitioners are that they basically focus on industries more instead of the problems. They highlight their industry experience that I have worked with FMCG, I have worked in the technological front, I have worked with construction or maybe manufacturing industries. But what they lack here is they don't really give functional areas that much of importance. You will understand this in the coming slides. And the last question, what value will you bring? So when you are a software developer, for instance, they won't ask you, they are not looking for answers like what software have you used. They are basically wanting to know that using XX software, what success did you get for the company as a whole and for yourself as an individual? So what I mean to again and again say is you need to position yourself strongly and not position yourself as a person who cannot take up skills as a transferable form. So before we move to the next slide, very quickly, I want you to remember that our transition resume doesn't sell your past. It sells your potential. So the organizational structure, the chronology that you followed across does not matter in a transitional resume. Whatever is your potential which you can get to the table for the next role matters the most, and that should be highlighted the most. So the obvious question now becomes, how do we actually make our previous resume experience look relevant without pretending to be something we are not? So as I said, we need not fabricate things for this. We need not exaggerate things, but we can still look very subtle and make our previous experiences count. So before changing the slide, now we know what recruiters are thinking. But the next question arises, how do we convince them that we are relevant? We are not talking to them beforehand. We are just sending them our resumes through job portals, through maybe social platforms. So how do we convince them before even we are shortlisted that we are relevant for them? Do we lie? Do we exaggerate? Do we hide our previous experience? Show ourselves as a fresher starting the career? No. The answer is no for all these questions. We just need to learn how to position ourselves. And that's what we are going to do in our next slide. So what I mean to say here in this slide is that recruiters don't know your company. Recruiters don't know your day-to-day KRAs. They don't know whom you worked with as your senior, as a junior, as your manager or subordinate. They only know what you choose to tell them, right? So your resume is the story you decide to present, and you need to be very selective when you select as to what part of my experience is most relevant for the role that I'm applying to. For example, a QA engineer is transitioning into a role of a business analyst. So what exactly, there are some basic things that QA engineers do. They read requirements, identify requirements, they ask questions, they identify gaps in the process, they validate the logic, business logic, they work with stakeholders. Now, in all these basic KRAs that I have listed for a QA engineer, do you think there is any transferable skill here which can be used for a business analyst? Can you write me any feature that you feel would be best for business analysis from a QA engineer list? I can repeat the list. QA engineer, they read requirements, they identify gaps, they ask questions, probe in, they validate the business logic, they work with stakeholders, they execute test cases. So, Vardhan, great. I really like your answer. Exactly. Mostly all, right, Vidya? So that answers your question here itself, that only rephrasing your earlier experience into something more logical, something more strongly positioned is what we need to do. So in a QA engineer's resume, you would see executed manual test cases, for example. We just have to rephrase it and write it in a way that looks logical for a business analyst by saying, analyze business requirements, identified process gaps, and collaborated with development teams to improve product quality. It is the same work, but we have positioned it in a different way. I can go on and on giving examples here, but I really, really want to take live questions wherein you give me pose me with your case, particular case, as to how we can transition, and we can pick your transferable skills. So that is why I'm not getting into much of examples. One last example, let's take of a data analyst transitioning to a business analyst. It's a very common transition that you see post COVID. So candidate A, there are two candidates who are data analysts and they are transitioning for a role of a business analyst. Candidate A has very vividly given her technical skills, as she's good in Excel, SQL. She is very good in maybe agile ceremonies, etc. And candidate B has very cleverly changed her temperament of the resume by saying that she built dashboards and reduced the reporting time by 50%. She identified customer churn patterns and enabled retention campaigns. Which candidate sounds more valuable to you when a person is transitioning from a data analyst role to a business analyst role? Can you answer that in the chat for me? Yeah, almost everyone is correct here. So basically, what I mean to say here is that recruiters do not really hire people who hire people with tools. They hire people, they want to know how did you use those tools to create a business impact. So let's make this activity very fruitful right now. And let's make this very practical. Let's see. I want everyone to type just one responsibility from your current job in the chat and what you are transitioning into. And I'll pick a few of them and rewrite them live. Let's see how we can transition it. Some of you. Give me a responsibility, Srishti, very quickly. Your current, any one responsibility. I understand that you're transitioning from a business owner to a product into product. Okay. Okay. I am noting down some of them. I am sorry if I have missed out on any ones because I wouldn't be able to take all. But at the moment, let's take Vidya's example. Okay, there is some technical issue I'm facing. Meha, are you there?
Yes, yes. Tell me.
Can you please give me a collated list of 4 to 5 here? I'm not able to copy paste.
Sure, I'll do that.
Thank you. With the name of the participant, please.
Sure,
Just 4 to 5 random.
sure.
Thank you.
Most welcome.